We have another renowned speaker today, Dr. Schulte from Bosch. Welcome.
Thanks.
And your topic today is supply chain resilience, this time for real. I'm sure you're going to explain
With
what
a question
exactly.
mark.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that. And Dr. Schulte, you're Senior Vice President at Bosch. You just arrived from Stuttgart this morning. No delay with train.
Nope.
Everything worked fine. Perfect. See, Germany is improving already. Over the last years, you had various international operative and strategic roles within research, supply chain, and purchasing. Besides implementing award-winning approaches for supply chain sustainability, your focus is on functional excellence, enabling transition, and solutions for competitive yet resilient supply chains. And since mid-2024, you oversee sustainability and environment, health, and sustainability at Bosch. Is that correct?
That's right.
Wonderful. So the show is all yours.
Thank you.
You need help with the computer?
Actually, just the logistics. Is there a clicker available that would smoothen the presentation a little bit?
I go back.
This is the flexibility we are all talking about.
So Dr. Schulte will talk about roughly half an hour, and afterwards you have enough time to really ask questions to him.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks, Dirk. And maybe two things just to start, because one quote, Dirk, you said, if you don't have a reliable product, if you don't have a reliable partner, the product is not going to be delivered. Consider me as a product today. And the journey for me was I need to come from Stuttgart to Frankfurt in time today. And as I'm used to, let's say, German habits, I was aware that I would have to take one train earlier. And I booked an Uber yesterday night. At 10 o'clock, I booked a Uber for 5:30 this morning to pick me up from my home to take me to the train station. And surprisingly, the Uber wasn't here today at 5:30. Which gave me another 31 minutes to get a little bit in a rush to the train station unexpectedly. And I will tell you what this also why this is related to my topic with resilience. Yeah? Because there were some things planned, there were some things even considered in advance, but then there was this surprising point. So again, thanks for having me. And the question is, of course, supply chain resilient this time for real. Why? You said it before, we've been talking about that for decades. And what's usually happening, well, if you're talking about resilience in the moment of crisis, everybody is shouting out, why are we not resilient? Why don't we have the second source? Why is the transport alternative not available? Why didn't we foresee this? And then you're looking for action, action, action. And when the task force is over, about 1 week after the task force is over, there will still be the lessons learned. Yeah, we should do something. Next time we should be better prepared. Half a year later, and please raise your hand if the behavior in your company is different. Half a year later, it's about, okay, we may have to implement something with respect to resilience, but it costs money. And now we have to look more into recovering the cost for the last crisis. So let's look into cost first. And 1 year later, let's say, be careful. There's also resilience. Don't throw the camera. And then 1 year later, few things have changed, but substantially you're running into the next crisis. At least that is my experience in long time with different companies. Well, if we're looking into resilience and why it is necessary, I don't want to bother you with some figures, but just to say what is the situation with Bosch. 90 billion turnover. If you're looking into this, 35,000 suppliers, and I'm talking about the large direct suppliers only, so that is, we will share the slide deck later on, so you don't, if you like, you can take pictures, but we will share it later on. 300 million deliveries, parts delivered daily. And if something is missing, then of course supply chain is not working. And we are talking about around about 24,000 associates in the supply chain. What's the takeaway? The takeaway is just whatever we do, we have to do thoroughly. And we have to do it in a plan, because we cannot just start an initiative today and stop it tomorrow. That's not going to work out, because it's more steering a tanker rather than a speedboat. And we are steering this tanker in very different industrial environments. So you are looking into mobility solutions. We are worldwide #1 automotive supplier. We are in industrial technology. Think about Bosch Frankfurt's company, or industrial automation also on the shop floor. Energy and building technology. So here we are talking about heat pumps. We are talking about gas heating systems. But as well, if you're looking into building technology, we are also talking about security systems, projects, like whatever. Secure the Frankfurt airport, projects like that. And the last one, consumer goods. So you may have used some power tools from Bosch in the past, or maybe you have household appliances from Bosch Siemens. So why saying this? The dynamics in those industries are completely different. And of course, it does make a difference if you are stopping a line at an automotive company, at an OEM, because you're not delivering a diesel pump, or if somebody is not receiving his power tool on the next day, as announced from Amazon. I'm not saying what is more or less important, I'm just saying the financial impact is of course a complete different one, and we need to manage this as well. So it's important not only to look into resilience, but it's also important to understand what type of resilience do we really want. And I'm gonna elaborate on that. So the journey so far, quite simple. There are many, many dimensions we have to look into. Yeah, is there material access available? Do I have means of transportation? Can I operate? I mean, think about Corona. Yeah, it was fine. The lines are there. The raw material is there. Unfortunately, some people cannot move to the factory, which is then also stopping operations. Resources, financial stability, communication. Yeah, think about just cybersecurity and the events we've seen, like in Spain. Or the Iberia just 2 weeks ago. Yeah, all of a sudden, no connection to any plant, unless, I mean, we had some emergency satellite phones running, but if that was not prepared, we wouldn't even have access to our plants and to our people. So here again, the question is, how are you prepared to the different crises? By the way, just to understand, who of you knows by heart the mobile phone number of your partner? If I take away your mobile phones now, no, seriously, look around. You will see 4 or 5, maybe it's not half. Yeah, I will try it later. No, but seriously, this is your partner. This is the most important person in your world. And if I take away your mobile phones, half of you will not be able to contact this person. Think about your production. If I take your mobile phones now, do your people know where to meet? Do they know whom to call? And are we maybe not a little bit naive in thinking that these wonderful devices are working? I mean, just as a maybe takeaway, a written emergency plan, which is pre-communicated and which your people know, may save you hundreds or thousands of euro, because it's speeding up if a crisis is coming up. Just as a sidestep here. Okay. So we're talking about how fragile are we? How robust are our supply chains? Ideally, how resilient can I adopt? And the wonderful thing, anti-fragile. And as anti-fragile means you're putting pressure on me and I'm getting even stronger. I can say I'm not in that mental state yet, but I'm trying to. So, of course, it's also about what type of resilience do we need? What type of flexibility do we want? And we have so many lessons we've learned in the past. The first one is total cost of ownership. Okay, that's something we all understand. So it's not just looking at the cheapest price, because if your supply chain is maybe a far one and you have logistic costs involved or tariffs involved, all of a sudden prices are changing, and that needs to be considered if you're looking into where do I source. And then we had this supply chain and transparency. We had Uyghurs Forced Labor Prevention Act. We have from China the anti-spy law. So if you try to satisfy the US, you need to make full transparency on Xinjiang region. If you try to satisfy the Chinese colleagues, you need to make sure that nobody's looking into that. So all of a sudden, as a global enterprise, no blaming, it's just stating if you try to be compliant with all the rules in the world, you're all of a sudden getting into a problem that you cannot, even if you like to, you cannot be compliant, and you need to be very, very selective in what you are committing to and how you're creating your business, because this global free trade is something from the past. And then this is the picture I like most. You have to look into what type of resilience do I want. Now, you all know, or many of you know Zugspitze. It's the highest mountain in Germany, around 2,000 meters. And I tell you, you can go there with flip-flops, with t-shirt, and just a little bit of sun protection. Clear. You take the cable car up, you go to the restaurant, you have a nice picture and selfie, and then you're going down again in summertime. Flip-flop, t-shirt, wonderful. Well, if you like to hike up there in wintertime, it's a different story. Flip-flops are not really recommended there. So all of a sudden, the question of when and how do I want to be resilient and to which extent is important, because to invest into flip-flop is much cheaper than into a full hiking equipment. And this is my first, or maybe the first takeaway for you, to understand the resilience requirements that your customer expects. That's most important. If your customer tells you you need to deliver every day, no matter what, well, you can invest like crazy into any, let's say, inventory or any other mitigation option. If your customer says, well, I would like to be delivered, but if the delivery is delayed by 2 weeks, and if you after 2 weeks can recover 50%, that's also fine. Oh, relief. Now you have time to change and use the option. So my first takeaway is make sure that your sales organization is talking with your customer about resilience expectations. If that's not done, you are either not doing enough for resilience or you should do more. But I think that's the key. That's where the story starts. And you need to do that. You talked about the studies. I like studies as well. This is one from KPMG. It's talking about stress in the supply chains, and I'm not going into details, but you're looking into crisis, the war of Russia on Ukraine. You're talking about energy crisis. You have a semiconductor crisis. You have COVID, and you know what? And of course, the expectation is not. Thanks for that. Already 10 minutes. This is just the thread in front. Yeah, I already got the 10-minute warning 15 minutes earlier. Anyway. Okay, I got it. Stress test, yeah. So, okay, what do we have to do? What's the point? Well, diversified supply base, of course, always helps. Safety stock helps. On the other hand, you talk with your CFO, and your CFO will tell you that with respect to liquidity and free cash flow, inventory is the last thing he wants or she wants. We are talking about flexibility and agility, obviously. I will share with you what we have done there. Risk and crisis management, because you cannot prepare for all crises. Yeah, what have I done? Standing in Stuttgart? Well, I've purchased a car some years ago. Fortunately, this car, which is inventory, was standing outside of the door, and that enabled me to go to the railway station this morning. Yeah, so you can talk with my wife whether it's really necessary to have a car. This morning, I was very happy I had this alternative planned for, and I could use it. So transparency and visibility, obviously, because without supply chain transparency, without knowing what is required and which resources are available, you have no chance to master the crisis. That's what Dirk said before. And collaboration and communication as well. Technology, digitization, we will cover that. So it's simple. I'm working in purchasing, or I've been working for more than 20 years in purchasing, and if someone tells me, what are you going to do to make your supply chain more resilient? Well, I bring in a second source. Second source is great, but it costs money. And we have to make our supply chains more efficient. So if you think about 35,000 suppliers, and I would come to the stupid idea to just double the number of suppliers to have a second source for every source, I would have to manage 70,000 suppliers, and you already understand this is not a good alternative. So now we have to balance this. We have people who say, well, we should have local for local production, even better. Every supplier close to the plant, which is great for resilience, but it's driving your costs into into the sky. So you need professional people, and again, data transparency. You need to understand, where do I need a second source? How fast can I change from one source to the other? So where do I have to prepare? Maybe with tools, or where can I be flexible at the end? And all this takes data. Without this understanding on where are your risky supply chains and which alternatives do you have, I think you have hardly a chance to really drive sustainability, resilience, rather than you will just follow some impulses. And then digital connects supplier motivation. It is great if you try to rely on a supplier who hasn't understood that he is your anchor or she is your anchor. So you need to talk with your suppliers. You need to understand what is the resilience of your supplier, because to just have a dual source in your supply chain means nothing. I had a wonderful case about probably 10 years ago. PA66. It's a technical Kunststoff, plastics. And there was an explosion at a German plant, Evonik, and I got that Saturday afternoon in the news, and I talked to my wife and said, okay, that's going to keep me busy for the next days. Sunday morning, calls came up, well, we have an issue, PA6 I said, don't worry, yeah, we have this wonderful source in Thailand, and Thailand is going to deliver. Unfortunately, I didn't know that Evonik was delivering to Thailand and Thailand to us. So the tier 3 we didn't know, and afterwards that was really a crisis for the automotive business at that time, because there were only 2 sources in the world that were delivering this pre-component. Nobody knew that. Yeah, it was just, oh, we have 16 sources. No, at the end, just 2. So deeper supply chain understanding, also very important. Okay, and then that leads you, and I'm not going into this, it leads you into a lot of opportunity with respect to engineering. Can I change parts? Can I change components? Can I use standard materials, which is always a little bit better than a specific material where you can run short? But then it's also the question make-buy. Do I have alternatives for my production? And last not least, also deliver. Yeah. Try to find a container relation now from Shanghai maybe to whatever, New York. You will have difficulties and you will pay high prices. Not talking about, let's say, raw materials currently, or rare earth metals, which are currently stuck in China because of export regulations. We have the same coming from the US. So this is unpredictable. Yeah, you have to think about, is transport available and what is my alternative? Because you cannot fly bulky parts. So long story short, a lot of complexity, a lot of data required, and I think what is also recommended to have some specific people who think about this. Because if the people that are close to your daily business need to also manage resilience, this usually leads to the fact that the people are stuck in their daily business and cannot really think about the concepts. So coming back to your companies, challenge your company, challenge your colleagues, ask them, which type of resilience plans do we actually have? And maybe it is also worthwhile to spend the one or other workshop to improve that. Can be reasonable. Yeah, and then you're coming into flexibility, but you're also maybe coming on to on-demand transport alternatives. This is what I had this morning, yeah, with my car. But anyway, I mean, you need it, yeah, and maybe you just a contract with another transport agency or with another logistics provider can be helpful in a crisis, because if you, at that moment, when everybody is looking for resources, try to jump onto that train, it's quite difficult. There are other alternatives. There are other alternatives, for instance, if you're thinking about circularity, circular economy. I mean, we are used, and that is also part of the pattern we've seen. Yeah, you take virgin materials from somewhere in the world and you shift it around from region to region, and then afterwards you are selling it somewhere. That's great if the material is available. If the material is not available, all of a sudden circularity becomes a solution. And honestly, I mean, I'm now responsible for sustainability at Bosch. And if you're looking into what the US administration is currently doing, that's maybe not so favorable, but I like it. Because if Trump is increasing the tariffs, what does that mean? Raw material prices are increasing, and all of a sudden, circularity models, which used to be not competitive in the past, because it was cheaper to get virgin material, that becomes competitive. Which at the end means we are going to use less new resources in this planet or on this planet, which I think is a nice idea. I think it's not what Mr. Trump intended, but looking into the glass is half empty or is half full, I will see a lot of opportunities in there. And we are, of course, using that at Bosch as well, because it is about innovation. It is about how can I use an alternative material? How can I use an alternative technology in order to get access to resources that some of my competitors don't have? Yeah, so in that sense, I think we will see also a lot of change here in the future and good alternatives. Of course, as I said, you cannot prevent from running into a crisis. I think it's hard to do that. So you need to be prepared. And I mean, coincidentally, just the day before, we have executed another exercise at Bosch, crisis management. So we have scenarios, we're running through that with our crisis team twice a year, and we have experts for that. So there is a crisis team coming together. We are looking into what type of crisis do we have. Is it a natural disaster? And I'm not talking about just a flooding somewhere. I'm talking about something serious. Is it a cyber attack? Whatever it is. And then the team comes together and we are running programs. And the good thing about it, that is the lessons learned from COVID. If you have people collaborating together and always running with those plans, you speed like crazy, because you also know what type of data you need, what type of communication you need, and which responsibilities need to be assigned in a moment of crisis. Time is really decisive there. So here, running exercises, having specific people, or at least people assigned to crisis management, is extremely helpful. Yeah? And then at the same time, of course, if you say, well, unfortunately, I don't have a crisis today, what I'm going to do with my crisis manager? Well, you have then an expert. And of course, the expert, if not busy with a crisis, can work on resilience and can support your teams with the insolvencies that take place or with the little hiccups that you will see in your supply chains. Of course, you could also think about the cost for avoiding a crisis. I said that, redesign, second source. You're looking into this here. So what is the cost? What is the speed? Safety stock is, of course, something you can have quite fast. You can maybe increase your vendor managed inventory in consignment stock. Long story short, think about this. Think about the alternatives that you have. Think about the products that you need to deliver. Think about the expectation from your customers. And I think then you can really simply come to those spots where you say, this is where we should invest, this is where we should prepare, and this is where we just take it as it is. And in a moment of crisis, we have the ability to react. Crisis, of course, also is related to some scenarios. It's good, I said that with respect to the training, it's good to think about what could hit us. If you have a certain relation to a certain customer and the customer is 30% of your business, well, it obviously makes sense to think about what could disturb my connection with this customer and how do I intervene. And I'm not talking about non-competitive prices, I'm talking about those shocks which you don't expect. Yeah, and for that, you need data. Starts with Dun & Bradstreet. I mean, we have been looking into this. For Bosch, we have, as you know, high complexity, so we are working with a lot of partners. But at the end of the day, it's risk dashboards, it's crisis dashboards, it's data availability, it's transparency, so that the people know if a certain product cannot be delivered, what is the result and impact on the customer, because you need to involve your customer here as well. I'm coming to an end. I skipped this one with respect to data. So what's the takeaway here? Joint alignment with your supply base is extremely important. Digitization or a digitized supply chain is something great for transaction, but it's not great for strategy. Yeah? Use the time that you save for transactional business due to better data connectivity and talk to your suppliers. Talk about, that is also when we ran into the COVID crisis. We have not jeopardized one single supplier throughout the whole COVID crisis. Yeah, the customers. No customer, of course, all customers were affected, but not by Bosch. Other suppliers had been less reliable, so we have not been the one that shut them down, which is great. But you can only do that if you have good relations to your suppliers. If you call them and you get an answer, and I'm talking to the company owner, and I'm not stuck in the service hotline, yeah, we call you back as soon as possible. Yeah. So think about this. Invest time into this. Agility is key. Data integrity and accuracy, of course. Yeah, if I cannot rely on the data that I have in my systems, forget about it. And AI is, of course, going to help us. It's not going to help us with data quality, because AI is as stupid as the data which is in the back, but it makes us much faster, of course. So I skipped the last ones with respect to time. I know I'm running out of that a little bit, but maybe the takeaways here. We don't know what the current development is going to be like. You showed like 68% of the people you have asked who think we're running into a crisis. I would say also the forecasts and outlook for this world has been better than before, but let's look into turning that into an opportunity and try to behave positive so that we can make a change here. But then what we need is mature solutions, and also we need our tools to become more efficient. Why this picture here? The picture is I like to ride e-bike. So you can put me on an e-bike, I'll ride 100 kilometers next day, no problem with my muscles, everything is fine. My wife sometimes puts me in the garden. 4 times a year, and the day after, strain and pain everywhere. Yeah? I have muscles in my body I never noticed for 1 year except of this moment. And why this story? The story because we, of course, are very used to the frequent impacts. Yeah? The insolvency, the fire somewhere, the little bit of water somewhere. But for the big impacts and for the changes, we cannot prepare everything. So we need people who are skilled, we need processes which are available. Again, maybe the, let's say, Excel sheet or the printout of your partner's telephone number helps in this moment. And with this, we can also use and overcome the let's say, unexpected crisis. So my takeaway is we will grow with our challenges. We have done it till now and we will do it in the future. And I wish you all the best with this, and I'll be here. So if there's any question coming up, I'm more than happy to answer that. Thanks for your attention.